The first time Julian Cross met his new client, he decided two things immediately. She was going to be trouble. He absolutely refused to smile at her. "Miss Harrington," Julian said in his crisp, professional tone, "from this moment on, you do not go anywhere without informing me first. You do not wander off. You do not breathe without permission," she finished sweetly. Camille Harrington leaned against the marble counter of her penthouse kitchen, blue eyes sparkling with mischief. She was a best-selling romance novelist with a flair for dramatics, and apparently a flair for driving her new bodyguard insane. Julian didn't blink. "Breathing is permitted." "Oh, good, I was worried." "Where are you going?" Julian asked sharply as Camille grabbed her coat. "Out." "Out where?" "Outside." "Miss Harrington." She sighed theatrically. "Julian, it's a coffee shop across the street." He checked his watch. "You were supposed to inform me." "I just did." "You informed me while already opening the door." She grinned, multitasking. He stepped in front of the door, one hand braced above her head, blocking her path. "You will wait while I check the perimeter." "The perimeter?" She looked delighted. "Oh, this is deliciously intense. Do you always talk like you're in an action movie?" "Yes." "I love that." He narrowed his eyes. 5 minutes later, they were walking to the cafe. Camille suddenly gasped. "What?" Julian scanned the street immediately. "My favorite croissants are half price." He stared at her. "That was not a threat," she clarified. "You said it like one." 3 days later, Julian had established a strict schedule. Camille had established a strict mission to ruin it. "Stay beside me," Julian instructed as they entered the grocery store. "Of course," she said innocently. 30 seconds later, she was gone. Julian froze. Then he spotted her, 2 aisles over, peeking at him from behind a tower of cereal boxes. He walked toward her slowly. "Explain." "You said stay beside you," she said. "You didn't say how long." His jaw tightened. "Miss Harrington." "Camille." He exhaled through his nose. "Camille, this is not amusing." "It is a little amusing." "It is not." She studied him carefully. "Do you ever relax?" "Yes." "When?" "When my client cooperates." She stepped closer, invading his personal space with zero hesitation. "And what if your client prefers chaos?" "Then your bodyguard develops a migraine." She laughed, a bright, unrestrained sound that made something unfamiliar twist in his chest. He didn't like that twist. Not at all. At a charity gala, Julian stood like a statue behind Camille as she mingled. "Stop glaring at the violinist," she murmured without turning around. "I am not glaring." "You look like you're planning his downfall." "He is standing too close to you." "He's playing music." "He is hovering." Camille turned, facing him fully now. "You're jealous." "I am vigilant." "Mm-hmm." She leaned closer, her voice dropping playfully. "You know, if you keep scowling like that, people are going to think you care." "I care about your safety." "That's not what I meant." Their eyes locked. For a moment, neither of them joked. Julian's voice lowered. "You test me on purpose." "Obviously." "Why?" She hesitated for once. "Because," she said softly, "you're the only person who doesn't treat me like I'm fragile. You order me around. That's my job. And you don't flirt with me." His expression flickered. "That is also my job." She smiled slowly. "You're very good at your job. That is the idea." "But," she continued, stepping even closer, "you're terrible at pretending you don't like me." His composure cracked. "Just slightly. I maintain professional boundaries. You followed me into the bakery freezer yesterday because you thought it was suspicious." "It was suspicious." "I was choosing ice cream." You were missing for 4 minutes. She tilted her head. You timed it. Silence. Julian Cross, she whispered dramatically, are you worried about me? He looked down at her, something warm finally breaking through the steel in his eyes. Constantly. Her teasing faded. That must be exhausting. It is. Then maybe, she said gently, you should let me worry about you sometimes. He blinked. That is not how this arrangement works. Maybe it should. The music swelled behind them. The crowd blurred. Camille reached up and straightened his tie, unnecessarily. You're allowed to smile, you know.
I do smile. I've never seen it. He stared at her for a long moment. Then, very faintly, his lips curved. Her breath caught. Oh, that's unfair. What is? You're handsome when you're not threatening civilians. I do not threaten civilians. You threatened a waiter yesterday. He was walking too fast. She laughed again, softer this time. Julian? Yes? After this contact ends, would you still follow me around grocery stores and accuse cereal boxes of suspicious behavior? He hesitated. I would prefer, he said carefully, to accompany you voluntarily. Her grin returned in full force. Is that your version of a date? It is the only version you are getting. She pretended to consider. Does it include croissants? Yes. Half price? If necessary. She extended her hand. Deal. He looked at her hand like it was a high-risk maneuver.
Then he took it, and for the first time since taking the job, Julian Cross didn't look like a bodyguard. He just looked like a man hopelessly, helplessly in love with the one person determined to drive him insane. Julian believed in routine. Camille believed in sabotage. Absolutely not, Julian said, arms crossed as Camille tied her sneakers. It's 6 a.m, she said. The world is barely conscious. Who's going to attack me? A sleepy jogger? Threats do not operate on a sleep schedule. She beamed. You've been waiting to say that, haven't you? He ignored that. You will run on the indoor treadmill. I hate treadmills. They're like running from your problems but staying emotionally stationary. That sentence made no sense. It made perfect sense. She darted past him toward the elevator. Julian caught her wrist, not harshly, just firmly. Camille? Her heartbeat jumped at the sound of her name in that low, warning tone. What? She asked innocently. You are not sprinting into an unsecured public park. She leaned closer. Are you going to carry me back inside? If required. Her eyes lit up. Promise? His jaw tightened. That was not an invitation. Pity. He lost. Technically. Because 10 minutes later they were at the park, under his supervision, with him scanning every tree like it might confess to something. Halfway through the run, it started to rain. Great, Julian muttered. Camille slowed, lifting her face to the sky. Oh, I love this. It reduces visibility. It's romantic. It's inconvenient. She spun in a slow circle, laughing as rain soaked through her hair and clothes. Julian stepped toward her. You'll get sick. You sound like an old man. I am 32. That's basically ancient in romance novel years. She stopped spinning and looked at him. Really looked at him. You never loosen up, she said softly, not even for a second. I can't afford to. Why? Because if something happened to you, he cut himself off. The rain fell heavier now, blurring the city around them. Camille stepped closer. If something happened to me, what? His voice was quieter than she'd ever heard it. It would be my fault. The teasing vanished from her expression. Julian, she said gently, you're not responsible for the universe. I am responsible for you. Her lips curved faintly. That's the most romantic, non-romantic thing anyone has ever said to me. He exhaled,
rain dripping from his hair. "You're impossible." "And yet," she whispered, "you're still here." She reached up and brushed a raindrop from his cheek. He froze, not from discipline this time, but from the intimacy of it. "You're shaking," she murmured. "I am not." "You are." "It is the rain." "It's definitely not the rain." She took his hand. He should have pulled away. He didn't. Back at the penthouse, both of them drenched, Julian handed her a towel. "You need to change immediately." "You first," she said. "I will change after confirming the residence is secure." "It's secure. You checked it before we left." "I will check again." She smiled softly. "You worry too much. And you don't worry enough. That's why we balance each other." He paused at that. Balance. She stepped closer, close enough that the air shifted between them. "Julian?" "Yes?" "You don't have to be my bodyguard for 5 minutes." His throat tightened. "I don't know how to be anything else." "Try." Her fingers slid to his collar, slowly fixing it even though it didn't need fixing.
His hands hovered at her waist, uncertain, like he was holding something fragile instead of the most chaotic woman he'd ever met. "Camille," he said quietly, "if I cross this line—" "Who says it's a line?" she whispered. Their faces were inches apart. His breath warmed her lips. Her teasing was gone now, so was his armor. And just as he leaned in, the doorbell rang. They both froze. Julian closed his eyes briefly. Unbelievable. Camille burst out laughing. "You have the worst timing in romantic history." He stepped back immediately, professionalism snapping back into place like a shield. "I will handle the door." "You mean you'll interrogate the delivery guy?" "Yes." "Be gentle. He might be carrying croissants." He gave her a look. She grinned. But as he walked away, she touched her lips, still warm from almost. And Julian, on the other side of the door, found his hands were not as steady as they used to be.
Later that night, after the interruptions, after the teasing, after the tension had stretched thin enough to hum, Camille found him on the balcony. "You're brooding," she said. "I do not brood." "You absolutely brood." The city lights reflected in his eyes. He looked calmer at night, less guarded. She leaned against the railing beside him. "Why did you become a bodyguard?" she asked. He was quiet for a long time. "Because I failed once." Her heart squeezed. "Failed who?" "Someone who trusted me." She didn't push for details. Instead, she slipped her hand in his. "You haven't failed me." His fingers tightened instinctively around hers. "You make it very difficult to succeed." "That's fair." He looked down at her. "You scare me," he admitted. Her brows lifted. "Me?" "Yes. I'm 5'6" and allergic to confrontation." "You make me want things I cannot afford to want." She swallowed. "Like what?"
"A life that does not revolve around exits and threats." Her voice softened. "Maybe it doesn't have to." Silence wrapped around them. Then, without overthinking it, without permission forms or perimeter checks, Julian cupped her face and kissed her. It wasn't cautious. It wasn't professional. It was weeks of tension, worry, irritation, longing, and restraint finally collapsing all at once. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. "That was inappropriate," he murmured. "Extremely," she agreed. "Unprofessional. Very." He kissed her again. When they finally separated, she smiled lazily. "So," she said, "does this mean I can still annoy you?" "You will never stop annoying me." "Good." His thumb brushed her cheek. "But now," he said, voice low, "you're doing it as mine." For once in her life, Camille Harrington was speechless, and Julian Cross, he was smiling without even realizing it. His POV. Julian Cross had guarded diplomats, CEOs, and one extremely paranoid tech billionaire who believed pigeons were government drones. None of them had ever undone him like Camille Harrington. From the beginning, he knew she was dangerous. Not physically, emotionally. The first time she smiled at him, really smiled at him, he'd felt it like a tactical error. Maintain distance. That was rule 1. Distance keeps clarity. Clarity keeps people alive. Camille did not believe in distance. It happened 2 weeks after the kiss. He was reviewing security footage in the living room. She had insisted on keeping him company, which meant lying on the couch dramatically describing plot ideas for her next novel. "And then," she said sleepily, "the brooding bodyguard finally confesses he's in love with the wildly charming heroine." "I do not brood," Julian said automatically, eyes on the screen. Silence. He glanced over. She had fallen asleep mid-sentence, head tipped sideways against his shoulder. He froze. His first instinct was to move her somewhere more comfortable. His second instinct was to stay very, very still. He chose the second. Her breathing evened out, slow, trusting. Trusting him. That word hit harder than any physical blow he'd taken in his career. Carefully, he shifted just enough to pull a blanket over her. She murmured something unintelligible and curled closer. Julian's pulse betrayed him. He had stood unflinching in front of weapons. But this softness, this unguarded version of her, it terrified him. Because protecting someone from danger was simple. Protecting your own heart from them? Impossible. He noticed things he shouldn't. The way waiters lingered too long at her table. The way men at events laughed too eagerly at her jokes. The way she barely noticed. She treated everyone warmly, but she teased him differently, and that difference fed something possessive in him he didn't want to examine. At a book signing, a charming journalist leaned a little too close. Camille laughed at something the man whispered. Julian stepped forward before he could stop himself. "Miss Harrington needs a break," he said firmly. The journalist blinked. "We're in the middle of—" "She needs a break." Camille looked up at him, amused. "Do I?" "Yes." She studied him carefully as he guided her away. When they were alone, she crossed her arms. "That was unnecessary. He was invading your space. He was asking about my book. He was flirting." She raised an eyebrow. "And that bothers you?"
No. It absolutely did. She stepped closer. "Julian." He held her gaze, refusing to retreat. "Yes? You're jealous. I am observant." She smiled slowly. "You forget I write romance for a living. I know tension when I see it." He leaned down slightly, lowering his voice. "Then you should also know," he said, "that I do not share what is mine." The words slipped out before he could cage them. Her breath caught. "Yours?" she whispered. He should correct it. He didn't. "Yes." Something shifted in her eyes. Less teasing, more certainty. "Good," she said softly, "because I don't want to be shared." Loving her felt like standing in an open field during a storm, exposed, vulnerable. One evening, after a credible threat forced him to tighten security, Camille found him double-checking the locks for the 3rd time. "You've already done that," she said gently. "I will do it again." She walked up behind him and wrapped her arms around his waist. It nearly broke him. "I'm not glass," she murmured against his back. "I know. You don't have to carry the world every second. I do." "Why?" He turned to face her, hands settling on her shoulders. "Because if I fail, you won't. You don't know that. I do." Her certainty unsettled him more than her chaos ever had. "You look at me like I'm your mission," she continued softly, "but I don't want to be your mission." His chest tightened. "What do you want to be?" She slid her hands up to his collar. "Your choice." The word hit harder than any confession. Mission implied obligation. Choice implied love. Julian rested his forehead against hers. "I don't know how to choose something that could be taken from me." Her hands framed his face. "Then choose it anyway." He closed his eyes briefly. For years he had lived in calculated steps, controlled risks, contained emotions.
Camille was none of those things. She was reckless laughter in grocery aisles, rainstorms at sunrise, half-price croissants treated like national emergencies. She was life without armor. When he opened his eyes, the decision was already made. "I choose you," he said quietly. No dramatic speech, no guarded tone, just truth. Her eyes filled, not with sadness, but relief. "Good," she whispered, "because I've been choosing you since the cereal aisle incident." Despite himself, he laughed, a real one. She grinned triumphantly. "There it is. I knew you had a proper laugh." He pulled her into him, holding her tightly, not because he feared losing her in that moment, but because for the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about threats. He was thinking about a future, and it didn't feel like a liability. It felt like hope.